On a sweltering October weekend, the largest-ever group of Marvel superheroes and friends gathered just outside of Atlanta for a top-secret assignment. 83 of the famous faces who have brought Marvel's comic book characters to life over the past decade mixed and mingled. Mark Ruffalo, who plays the Hulk, bonded with Vin Diesel, the voice of Groot, the monosyllabic sapling from Guardians of the Galaxy. Angela Bassett, mother to Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther, flew through hurricane-like conditions to report for duty alongside Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Brie Larson, Paul Rudd, Jeremy Renner, Lawrence Fishburne, and Stan Lee, the celebrated comic book writer and co-creator of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. Their mission to strike a heroic pose to commemorate 10 years of unprecedented making success. Marvel Studios, which kicked things off with Iron Man in 2008, has released 17 films that collectively have grossed more than $13 billion at the global box office. 5 more are due out in the next 2 years. The sprawling franchise has resuscitated careers. Downey has minted new stars Tom Hiddleston, and increasingly attracts an impressive range of A-list talent, from art house favorites Benedict Cumberbatch and Tilda Swinton in Doctor Strange to Hollywood icons Anthony Hopkins and Robert Redford to at least 3 handsome guys named Chris Hemsworth, Evans, and Pratt. The wattage at the photo shoot was so high that Ant-Man star Michael Douglas was collecting autographs. Photographer Jason Bell shot Vanity Fair's own Marvel portfolio shortly afterward. Readers in search of the Vanity Fair Marvel experience, including all 4 covers, can purchase here. But at WASNT, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury or even Chris Evans' Captain America, who assembled Earth's mightiest heroes. They came for Kevin Feige, the unassuming man in a black baseball cap who took Marvel Studios from an underdog endeavor with a roster of blissed characters to a cinematic empire that is the envy of every other studio in town. Feige's innovative, comic book-based approach to blockbuster making, having heroes from one film bleed into the next, has changed not only the way are made but also pop culture at large. Fans can't get enough of a world where space-hopping Guardians of the Galaxy might turn up alongside Earthbound Avengers, or Doctor Strange and Black Panther could cross paths via a mind-bending rift in the space-time continuum. Other studios, most notably Warner Brothers, with the Justice League, have tried to create their own web of interconnected characters. Why have so many failed to achieve Marvel's heights? Simple, said Joe Russo, co-director of Avengers 3 and 4. They don't have a Kevin. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Letitia Wright as Shuri, Karen Gillan as Nebula, and Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. Before Feige, Marvel Studios wasn't even making its own films. Created in 1993 as Marvel Films, the arm of the comics company simply licensed its characters to other studios, earning most of its money from merchandise sales. The popular 2002 Sam Raimi-directed Spider-Man, for example, was made by Sony's Columbia Pictures. Feige was part of the team that pushed for the studio to take creative control of its library of beloved characters, a risky move at the time. For us old-timers, me and Robert Downey and Gwyneth Paltrow and Kevin, it felt like we were the upperclassmen. Jon Favreau, director of the first 2 Iron Man-s, told me shortly after the photo shoot. We were emotional, thinking about how precarious it all felt in the beginning. Feige has never really forgotten that feeling of uncertainty. He confessed that he experiences pangs of anxiety multiple times on every film, and told me he often wonders, what is the that's going to mess it all up? But, as the vaunted Marvel Cinematic Universe enters its 2nd decade, perhaps the more pressing question is what's the that's going to keep it all going? After Avengers 4, an ambitious multi-franchise crossover slated for release in 2019, at least some of the original characters who sit at the center of the billion-dollar Avengers team will be hanging up their capes and shields. That's partially because the Marvel contracts with the actors who play them, Evans Captain America, Ruffalo Hulk, Downey Iron Man, Johansson Black Widow, Hemsworth Thor, and Renner Hawkeye, are coming to an end. Meanwhile, DC Comics' Wonder Woman, one of the top-grossing films of 2017, proved that Marvel doesn't have a monopoly on beloved superhero icons. Disney promises that Marvel has at least another 20 years' worth of characters and worlds to explore. For starters, the studio is finally delivering films with black and female heroes at the core, but declines to offer up any secrets of that ambitious slate. Moviegoers, for now, will simply have to trust in Feige. Luckily for Marvel obsessives, the 44-year-old studio executive is one of them. At the heart of Kevin is a real Scarlett Johansson paused before using the same word everyone does to describe her boss, fanboy. Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, Don Cheadle as War Machine, Vin Diesel as Groot, Dave Bautista as Drax, Paul Bettany as Vision, and Michael Douglas as Dr. Hank Pym. The fanboy. On the morning of the premiere of the latest Avengers film, Thor Ragnarok, Kevin Feige sits in his office on the second floor of the Frank G. Wells building, on the Walt Disney Studios lot. Alongside a shelf of his trademark baseball caps, some stacked 4 deep, Feige's walls and tables are adorned with reminders of the characters, narratives, and modern-day myths he's brought to the big screen. But when it comes time to tell his own origin story, Feige smiles warmly at me before pretending to fall asleep. It's not that he's told the story too often. Feige rarely talks about himself in interviews, he just finds his own journey deeply and interesting. Mark Ruffalo thinks this is actually the key to Feige's success. The people that I think are great, like Daniel Day-Lewis, don't make it about them, it's about the material, he said. You don't see Daniel Day-Lewis trying to show you how fucking great Daniel Day-Lewis is, and he's our greatest actor. Kevin's like that. Feige obligingly zooms through his biography for me. Childhood in Westfield, New Jersey, in the late 70s and 80s, an obsession with blockbuster Superman, Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, terrible grades in junior high, S at the local theater every Friday night. Comics were okay, but S were his thing. Feige's grades improved in high school, and he got into the University of Southern California, his goal since he was 11 or 12 years old, only to be rejected from its selective film school 5 or 6 times before he got in. All he wanted to do, his entire life, was make films. As he relaxes in the interview, Feige's storytelling instincts kick in, and he begins to infuse his own narrative with touches of destiny or, as he calls them, can you believe it moments. The first of those moments came years before when Feige landed a college internship working for director Richard Donner and his wife, producer Lauren Schuler Donner. Later, when each Donner was looking to hire a time assistant, Feige thought the choice was clear. Richard Donner, who directed Superman, was one of Feige's idols. Superman was formative, he says. But he ultimately decided to work for Schuler Donner, the busier of the two, and set himself on the road to becoming a producer. Which is how he found his way to Marvel, and an important lesson in risk-taking. Says Black Widow actress Scarlett Johansson. At the heart of Kevin is a real fanboy. Schuler Donner was a producer on, and a driving force behind, X-Men, a 2000 Fox film starring Marvel characters. One day on set, Schuler Donner and Avi Arad, then head of Marvel Studios, Ed as an exasperated stylist, at Feige's insistence, sprayed and teased actor Hugh Jackman's hair higher and higher to create the hairstyle that would become the signature look of the character Wolverine. The stylist eventually went fine and did a ridiculous version, Feige recalls. If you go back and look at it, he admits, he's got big-ass hair in that first. But that's Wolverine. The experience stuck with Feige. I never liked the idea that people weren't attempting things because of the potential for them to look silly, he says. Anything in a comic book has the potential to look silly. That doesn't mean you should try to make it look cool. Feige's passion and geeky attention to detail caught Arad's eye. He affectionately refers to Feige as a Trekkie. Arad hired Feige and sent his new employee to studios that licensed Marvel characters to monitor the company's intellectual property, offer helpful notes, and generally serve as a Marvel ambassador. Feige had directors like Sam Raimi with fascination and others, occasionally, Favreau noted, in frustration in the era of films such as Daredevil, Ang Lee's Hulk, and The Punisher. Feige's advice was sometimes ignored, and many of those films became notorious flops. The answers, Feige still says, explaining why comic book adaptations go wrong, are always in the books. By the time Arad had a financial plan in place for Marvel to finance its own films, Hollywood had turned its back on the superhero genre. Even Marvel's most popular character, Spider-Man, disappointed at the end of his trilogy in 2007. Some people were giving last rites to the genre, Favreau said. Feige downplays it now, but like Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls, Marvel Studios bet everything on the first role. Borrowing money by offering up film rights to its biggest characters as collateral and tirelessly pitching the idea to skeptical foreign buyers, Feige and Arad finally hired 3 directors to make S for Marvel Studios: Favreau for Iron Man, Louis Leterrier for The Incredible Hulk, and Edgar Wright for Ant-Man. Only Favreau would become part of the enduring Marvel legacy. People forget Iron Man was an independent, Feige says. The gamble paid off. Iron Man premiered to rave reviews and a huge box office in 2008, giving Marvel the financial cushion and industry credibility it needed to forge on with its strategy. Meanwhile, as the ranks of Marvel Studios swelled beyond a skeletal operation, its CEO decided to depart. You can talk to my friends and enemies, and they'll tell you my weakest point is, I'm a one-man show, Arad said. Not wanting to deal with the infrastructure that comes with launching a major franchise, Arad stepped down before the first Iron Man hit theaters, but not before anointing his heir apparent. At only 33 years old, Feige was officially in charge of the first significant independent studio since DreamWorks. Angela Bassett as Ramonda, Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, Anthony Mackie as Falcon, and Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. Birth of the universe. Marvel's run as an indie studio didn't last long. The Walt Disney Company had been looking for a producer of tentpole films that could expand its audiences beyond family-friendly fare and the girl-centric princess line. Marvel, with its built-in audience of young men, fit the bill, and Disney acquired the company in 2009 for $4 billion. Another can you believe it moment for Feige, who spent annual childhood vacations at Disney theme parks. Even with Disney's deep pockets, Marvel continued to run a lean operation. Up until 4 years ago, Feige operated out of a series of unassuming offices, one shared with a kite company in West Los Angeles, one above a Mercedes-Benz dealership in Beverly Hills, and one Manhattan Beach office that, even after the success of The Avengers, was cheap and dreary, as Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn remembers. On the wall of one of those early, drab offices hung a 1988 Technicolor poster by Marvel artists Ed Hannigan and Joe Rubinstein, crowded to the margins with hundreds of characters from all different storylines with the words Marvel Universe emblazoned across the top. Feige would challenge visitors to find the smallest figure in the scrum. "I feel a lot of joy for the next generation," Johansson says. Feige said he had long believed in the storytelling potential of weaving together Marvel's superheroes and plots, in essence bringing that Marvel Universe poster to life. His hunch was validated by the media coverage around the astonishing $98 million opening weekend of Iron Man. Samuel L. Jackson's brief appearance in that as Nick Fury, director of a counterterrorism agency central to the Marvel Universe, initially was meant as an Easter egg, a knowing wink, for die-hard fans. "We put it at the end so it wouldn't be distracting," Feige said of the post-credits stinger that launched a decade-long trend. But after he saw how audiences, not just devoted comics fans, responded to Fury's appearance, Feige knew the idea of cross-pollinating characters and had legs. One early challenge was getting actors to sign up for Marvel's ambitious vision. A character might star in one film, be part of an ensemble in another, and just make a goofy guest appearance in yet another. Jackson signed an unheard-of 9-picture deal with Marvel shortly after Iron Man came out, ensuring his participation in the subsequent Avengers and other Marvel properties. Feige found it particularly challenging to secure Chris Evans as Captain America, a character who acts as leader of the Avengers. Evans, who'd previously tackled the comic book genre as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four, was hesitant to sign a long-term deal that would prevent him from doing other projects. Evans asked for a weekend to make his decision. Feige cited those few days as among the most nerve-wracking of his tenure, before committing to success. Once Hemsworth agreed to play Thor, another foundational Avenger, Feige's grand plan was underway. "It doesn't hurt that Marvel contracts can be supremely lucrative." Robert Downey Jr. reportedly made $80 million in 2015, thanks largely to his work as Iron Man. Still, it wasn't until a celebratory night in Rome in 2012, on the Avengers press tour, that the Marvel extended family really understood what its boss had planned. "I'm socially awkward," Feige said. "He's short on kibitz," Downey likes to say. "So I talked about what we can do next." As the hotel staff shushed them and the hour grew late, Feige pulled back the curtain on his master plan, or at least some of it. "I would like to take all of the comics and start to build the Marvel Universe," Feige declared. "We'll have 15 productions in the next 2 years. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, Linda Cardellini as Laura Barton, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and Zoe Saldana as Gamora." The Marvel way or bust. Marvel's first decade of making has not been without its misses and heartaches. Neither Iron Man 2, which came out in 2010, nor 2013's Thor: The Dark World won critical raves. Two prominent directors, Edgar Wright and Joss Whedon, very publicly parted ways with Marvel after squabbling with the studio over artistic control. Wright, who wrote an early draft of Ant-Man but left the project in 2014 before filming began, declined to comment for this story. Whedon, who wrote and directed 2 Avengers and severed ties with Marvel in 2016, did not respond to requests to talk about his departure. But in published interviews, both men have said they felt they had to sacrifice their own vision to serve Marvel's interests. The exodus of two admired artists. Wright was known for his genre send-ups Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Whedon for creating the Buffy the Vampire Slayer television series was not a good look for Marvel, which until then had enjoyed a fanboy-friendly reputation. From inside the family, James Gunn, Anthony Russo, and Evangeline Lilly, an Ant-Man star, described this period as a messy divorce and the tone around the studio as uneasy. Some critics argued that Marvel's success spawned so many big-budget copycats that creativity didn't stand a chance in Hollywood. Even one of Feige's childhood heroes, Steven Spielberg, took a public shot at the glut of comic books. With Guardians of the Galaxy, fans validated our more esoteric instincts, Feige says. Feige doesn't deny that directors need to play by a set of rules when they join Team Marvel, especially now that the concept of a single cinematic universe is non-negotiable. Filmmakers, coming in, understand the notion of the shared sandbox more than the initial filmmakers did because the sandbox didn't exist then, he said. At the same time, the studio seems increasingly willing to let directors be experimental and original in other ways. Guardians is probably the best example of the audience validating even our more esoteric instincts, Feige said. The unabashed goofiness of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the gonzo tone of Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok signal a radical departure from, say, the staid bleakness of Thor: The Dark World. Director Ryan Coogler's upcoming Black Panther marks another major shift for Marvel. In February, the studio will launch its first with a black actor, Chadwick Boseman, in the lead. Captain Marvel, starring Brie Larson in the title role of a female Air Force captain with superpowers, opens in 2019. I can't think of anybody at Marvel that hasn't directly approached me and had very in-depth conversations about Panther, Boseman told me. Pom Clemente as Mantis, Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, and Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Life with Ike. It seems like more than happenstance that Marvel's emphatic inclusiveness coincides with a long-overdue 2015 management restructuring by Disney that put Feige firmly in control of the studio and quietly sidelined Isaac Ike Perlmutter, Marvel's controversial chairman and former CEO. Perlmutter is a shadowy but essential figure in the world of Marvel. The 75-year-old mogul helped rescue Marvel Entertainment Group from bankruptcy in 1998 when he merged it with Toy Biz Inc., a company he co-owned. Though Perlmutter endorsed Marvel's decision to make its own films, he clung to outdated opinions about casting, budgeting, and merchandising that ran counter to trends in popular culture, sources close to the studio said. For example, Perlmutter, citing his years in the toy-making business, reportedly made the decision to scale back production of Black Widow-themed merchandise in 2015 because he believed girl superhero products wouldn't sell. Director James Gunn chalked up every conflict he had making Guardians of the Galaxy to Perlmutter and the Marvel Creative Committee, a legacy of the studio's early days, which read every script and gave writers and filmmakers feedback. Said Gunn, they were a group of comic book writers and toy people who gave him haphazard notes. The committee, for example, suggested Guardians of the Galaxy ditch the 70s that the film's hero loves. The S, featuring retro hits, would later go platinum. Members of the creative committee declined to comment for the story. Perlmutter also declined to comment, but a person with knowledge of his approach said, Ike Perlmutter neither discriminates nor cares about diversity, he just cares about what he thinks will make money. In August 2015, a few months after rival Warner Brothers earned serious feminist bragging rights with its announcement that Patty Jenkins would direct Wonder Woman, Disney confirmed that it had changed Marvel's management structure. Feige would report to Alan Horn, chairman of Walt Disney Studios, ostensibly as part of an effort to integrate Marvel into the bigger Disney film family. Perlmutter remains chairman of Marvel Entertainment. An early Trump supporter, he also advises the White House on veterans issues. Critics sometimes forget that Feige announced Captain Marvel and Black Panther in 2014, during the Perlmutter era. Instead, they focus on how Marvel missed the chance to make the first female-led superhero of the modern era. I asked Feige if he wished Marvel had gotten there before Wonder Woman. Yeah, he answered Carrie. I think it's always fun to be first with most things. Ever the fanboy, Feige got chills recounting the heroine's powerful stand in No Man's Land for me in his office. Everything's going to work out, he said cheery. Captain Marvel is a very different type of Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, Benedict Wong as Wong, Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, President of Marvel Studios Kevin Feige, Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, and Marvel Comics legend Stan Lee. The Avengers, and everything after. 1 week before the Marvel 10th anniversary photo shoot, on the set of Avengers 4, I had Marvel's biggest stars lounge on comfy couches under a canopy in the long stretches between takes. Mark Ruffalo scratched Scarlett Johansson's back, while Johansson, Chris Evans, and several other Avengers hunched over their phones in a competitive game of words with friends. I reached for a camera to record the moment. Some of the most famous faces in the world lit up by phone screens just like the rest of us, but the ever-vigilant Marvel security team had wrapped my phone in layers of protective tape. Later, Chris Hemsworth mentioned that very moment to me. I thought, could somebody take a photo of this? We're all aware that this is going to be the last time we get to hang out like this, and yet the actors who have contributed so much to Marvel's past successes have little doubt about the studio's future. I feel a lot of joy for the next generation, Johansson said. It's a bittersweet feeling, but a positive one. In true Marvel fashion, members of the original Avengers team will help pave the way for the new guard. The latest Captain America introduced fans to Boseman's Black Panther, while Downey's Tony Stark mentored Tom Holland's Peter Parker in Spider-Man Homecoming, serving at the pleasure of young Master Holland, Downey said with characteristic flair. Spider-Man's return to the Marvel fold is a coup for Feige, who helped orchestrate a hero-sharing arrangement with Sony. Feige is short on kibitz, says actor Robert Downey Jr. To hear Disney CEO Bob Iger tell it, Marvel's next wave is just beginning. He notes that the studio has rights to 7,000 characters, who can travel anywhere their creators wish to take them. We're looking for worlds that are completely separate, geographically or in time, from the worlds that we've already visited, Iger explained. Both Iger and Feige hinted at how the franchise will expand into different realms, with James Gunn working in close collaboration to possibly spin off some characters from the extraterrestrial world of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel is 22s in, and we've got another 20s on the docket that are completely different from anything that's come before, intentionally, Feige said. While Feige refused to reveal any details about the characters and stories Marvel has yet to introduce, he did promise a definitive end to the franchise that built Marvel. Avengers 4, he said, will bring things you've never seen in superhero films, a finale. This may mean a lot of dead Avengers at the hands of the villain Thanos, who has appeared sporadically and tantalizingly since the first Avengers back in 2012. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe will live on. There will be two distinct periods. Everything before Avengers 4 and everything after. I know it will not be in ways people are expecting, Feige teased. Everything after, without these Marvel mainstays, will be hard work. The studio constantly needs to cast new actors, develop surprising new narratives, and risk looking a little silly, as Feige did with Wolverine's hair, all under the harsh glare of millions of fans and detractors saying the studio's every move. Feige, however, has no worries about Marvel's longevity, a point he illustrated by quoting one of his personal heroes on opening day. When people asked Mr. Walt Disney if Disneyland was finished, he said, "As long as there's imagination in the world, Disney will never be complete. And as long as people are willing to superheroes save the world, Marvel and Kevin Feige won't be done either." Get Vanity Fair's HWD newsletter. Sign up for essential industry and award news from Hollywood.